And in this corner, the podcast, a buck 58, I think. Boxing's biggest names, boxing's biggest stories, boxing's biggest fights, greatest memories, and moments. We cover it all, and boy, are we covering it all. And in this one, it's going to be a little bit of a boxing's, I was going to say good, bad, and ugly, but in this one, it's mostly bad and ugly with what we witnessed or did not witness over the weekend. We have a lot to get to, and we'll do it all with, of course, boxing writer, author, CompuBox counter, historian. He is Lee Groves. How you doing, Lee?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Pretty good. In a little bit, got a little bit of those pain. The weather here is we've had so much rain, and when you're an ex-athlete and still want to be athlete, it catches up with you a little bit. But the most pain and angst I feel is not in my joints and not from my joints, but from the disjointing of what I saw over the weekend in the sweet science with all this flash and panache and our artistic stuff and theatrical stuff that they were going to do in light of these cards. Of course, Times Square, Saudi Arabia, Las Vegas, Nevada. The only thing that really landed was the end here in Las Vegas. We'll get to that later, but a lot to get to. You worked out the script, so honestly, we got so much to get to. I'll just let you take it away. Let's go.
Well, this first segment is going to be devoted to the Times Square show that was on Friday. And on paper, at least, this looked like a pretty solid event. We had a unique venue, the middle of Times Square. We had competitive fights, at least on paper, and interesting storylines. I mean, you have Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney returning to the ring after more than a year away against opponents that posed a threat in Raleigh Romero and Jose Carlos Ramirez, both of them former world champions. You also had a hometown guy in Teofimo Lopez defending against an undefeated secondary titleist in Arnold Barboza Jr. And those two got into it verbally, so they really did their job as far as building up the anticipation. And then you have the return of Jim Lampley to the microphone after more than 6 years away, and everybody was wondering how that would go. Well, first, let's talk about the positive. Jim Lampley. At first, there was a little bit of ring rust, but once the fight started, he sounded just like the Jim Lampley we all remember. He was observant. He was detailed. He was funny. He was smooth.
He was honest.
And yes, he was definitely honest. I texted him after the show and I asked him how he thought he did, and he said he was very happy with his performance. And I was very happy with his performance. What did you think of his performance?
He was honest. Yeah, he did a nice job. Look, I've worn all those kind of hats in broadcasting, from color commentary, which is my specialty, to done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of blow-by-blows and roving. I've done it all, and I respect the guys that do it well. And he's a legend in the sport, coming back. And what I liked is probably something that most people wouldn't even bring up, and I'm going to say it for maybe a third time, or honest. The fact that he was honest, and yes, he's happy to be back doing it. We don't know how long he's going to do it, but when push, rather than feed all the BS about how great these fighters are and how great everything is, he just finally told the truth. Jim's got a good sense of humor, and that made listening to it better than certainly what we were seeing, which resembled more of a track meet. There was a lot of track and field going on. In especially in both nights, really, the first two nights. But I thought Jim did a fine job, and again, he called upon that broadcast experience, but then was able to adjust on the fly after having a lot of years off and go into just explaining to the folks. And then he did a great job of bringing in Antonio Tarver, who did a
Hmm.
really nice job. The other guy is the other guy. He's whatever. But those two did a really nice job. So, yeah, Jim did a really good job. And on a real low level of stuff to talk about, he was certainly the highlight.
He certainly was the highlight. He got off some pretty good lines as well. As for the fights themselves, probably the best ones in terms of action involve the NYPD and FDNY amateur fighters. And the preliminary fighter, Reito Tsutsumi, who was making his professional debut, he was fighting a guy named LaVale Whittington, who fought a lot better than his 1-2-1 record suggested. But as far as the headline fighters are concerned, well, okay. I think the best of the three marquee bouts was Teofimo Lopez and Arnold Barboza. I predicted on last week's show that Lopez would win on points because he was just a little bit better than Barboza in every category. But even though he dominated, he wasn't compelling. I gave you the blow by blow over the phone because you were driving home from work at the time. And frankly, there wasn't much to tell you. Every round looked pretty much the same to me. Lopez was quicker, he was slicker, he was more precise. Barboza was doing the best he could, but he is a boxer and a counterpuncher by nature. He just couldn't break through. Neither one of them landed accurately or hard or anything, but Teofimo, second half of the fight, he pulled away. He won a pretty decisive decision, but there was no drama. There was no pizzazz to it. What'd you think?
Well, years ago, we know how Tiafimo came out of the gate in boxing and was very impressive, tremendous athleticism, explosiveness, the takeover. And then after I forgot what fight it was, I said that the takeover needs a makeover.
Yeah.
And he has done a makeover, and it's not too thrilling. Maybe there's too much makeup on and concealing what was that explosiveness. But unfortunately for him, as he goes up in weight now, if he goes up, to welterweight, what did they fight at the other night? What was that?
They fought at 140 pounds, but
Yeah,
and after the fight, Teofimo
right.
said that he wanted to fight Jaron Boots Ennis,
Yeah.
who is
And he's
old
going to
school.
get, and he'll get a makeover. If he'll get a makeover, definitely if he goes and fights him, because he'll get his ass kicked. He's not going to beat Boots, and he's not going to beat any very good guy at a buck 47 because Tiafimo's a little guy. Every once in a while, we see somebody that can do it. We'll be talking about somebody that was able to do it when we end this show with Manny Pacquiao, but he's not. So I don't see much ahead. Tiafimo is part and parcel of the problem right now. They let all the stuff going on around them, and with him, it's his father as well, get away from, because Tiafimo, really, of all the guys on that card, he's a really good athlete, good boxer, good puncher, good skills, and really has the ability to, even perhaps be a Hall of Famer, but I just think we've seen the best of him, and he's probably going to win some more fights, but anyway, I could do without him. I think anything that was special with him, we already saw.
Yeah. And moving on to the next fight, Haney and Ramirez. And this fight was interesting to me because at his best, Ramirez's best weapon was a left hook. And we all recall what happened a year ago against Ryan Garcia. He couldn't get away from the left hook. So it was interesting to see what would happen if Ramirez happened to land a good one on him. Well, we never got to find out because Haney never gave him a chance to do it.
I text you within the first 15 seconds because I had landed at my destination at Poppy's house, Will, my buddy's house, watching it. And I saw within the first second, I saw Devin Haney throwing a jab and pulling back at the same time. There's of course a feeling out process in boxing. There's so many different ways to use the left jab, and we've chronicled all of those ways on on my television show and my in rings. But when you're pulling back, even before you're letting the jab out there, you're in retreat mode. And and when you're in retreat mode mentally, it's going to show up physically. And it showed up the entirety of that 12 rounds. And Devin Haney looked like a petrified fighter. You know, he looked like somebody who was still shell shocked from what happened before. He went way too long after the Ryan Garcia fight without fighting again. He should have come back, 3 or 4 months later, 5 months at the most, 6. Fought again, got some comfort level back, and not on a stage or whatever the hell that was in Times Square. And again, with Haney, I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. We've seen the best of Devin Haney as well. And by the way, his father is another one that's a tremendous detriment to him. He does not help his son by doing all the stuff. You're acting like your son is Sugar Ray Robinson or Sugar Ray Leonard or Sugar Shane Mosley, and he ended up looking like Sugar Shane shit. So, he's not helping his son with all the stuff that he does leading up to these fights. It's just counterproductive.
As I was watching the fight, I couldn't help but think about the fact that Devin Haney acted a lot like Hector Camacho Sr. did after he fought Edwin Rosario. He got hurt twice in that fight, and even though he won controversially, and from that point forward, for years afterwards, Camacho was never the same. He was safety first. He ran around the ring to the point where people were making fun of his nickname, Macho Camacho.
Yeah.
Camacho
And by the
Camacho.
way, I spoke to Hector right after that fight. He called me and he was in tears on the phone.
Yeah,
I don't think he was quite. I don't think he was ever quite the same after that
never was.
fight. But still, much better than anything we'll ever see from Devin Haney. Camacho's a Hall of Famer.
So it's safe to say you think that we're never going to see a prime Devin Haney again.
No,
No. And we move on to the third and final fight, the marquee fight, really, of
because
Ryan.
prime is also what goes on between here. These pugilistic pups that are saying, "What's Smitty talking about? He's in his 20s." It doesn't matter if you don't have it right here. It's not going to go down to your shoulders, your arms, your fist, your hips, your thighs, your knees, your calves, your ankles, your feet. If you've lost it here, then you ain't got it anywhere in boxing, because mentally, to me, is the most important part of the sport.
Very, very much so. And as far as the final fight on that card, this is a fight that we've discussed on our show for a couple of years now, Rolly Romero and Ryan Garcia. And we've always framed it as the one that Ryan should take if he ever wanted to become a world champion, because you know,
Raleighville.
Raleighville, because of the way Raleigh was back then. He was a wild swinger. He was one of the most technically flawed fighters that we've come across in some time. But you know what? The Raleigh back then isn't the Raleigh we saw on Saturday. You were one of Raleigh's biggest critics, but you told me after the fight on the phone that you were actually standing and cheering for Raleigh. What did he do right, and why were you cheering for him?
Well, because of all the fighters on the card, he was the one that was there to really be slaughtered.
Mm,
He was there. He was the sacrificial Raleigh lamb
mm,
for the king, the great white boy with the hair, and the Ryan Garcia who came in a Batmobile. He wasn't Batman, he wasn't Robin. But I tell you what, I give all the credit in the world to Raleigh for holding himself together, to being composed. I
mhm.
don't think he ever got hit with a solid left hook
Not
the
one.
entire 12 rounds. We saw whoever's training him now. Is it Salas? Is it
Ismail Salas.
done a
He's a
great
Cuban
job?
trainer.
And Raleigh was listening. And I'll guarantee you, and we heard stuff after the fight where Raleigh said that, they treated him poorly. They didn't do this. They didn't give him his per diem. They didn't do this or that or whatever. Man, oh man, for somebody who is so flawed, he certainly stepped up to the plate And again, even more than Tiafimo, for me, he was the shining light on Times Square. That we think of Times Square and that ball dropping. Well, that ball, if it was if it represent boxing, it crumbled and exploded, but he didn't. He held his ground. He fought. It wasn't a brilliant fight to watch, but he clearly won it. And for somebody who's been so critical of him, so critical, if I don't wear a hat too much, but I would hats off to Raleigh. Raleighville was actually again the bright light in Times Square on Friday, in my opinion.
Very much so. Ever since this was his second fight with Salas, and the first fight was against Manuel Jaimes. And in the analysis, you saw a great difference. He was disciplined. He didn't throw wild punches. They were straight. He was very uh, focused, very composed, very poised.
And he was fighting a guy that really wasn't there to win. Ryan thought by showing up he wins, and he shows up in was it a Batmobile, whatever the
The
hell it was.
Batmobile, yeah.
Yeah. And he wasn't there to win. There was no urgency on his part. His body didn't look right to me. And you know what I think of Ryan Garcia. He's a one trick pony. It's a pretty good trick, and now it's been exposed. And now as he goes up in weight and age and whatever, we've also. I just want to really turn the page on all of those, those guys that all social media and boxing experts talk about Ryan and Raleigh and Devin because it gets them their clickbait, I think is what you call it in today's term. You know what they are to me? They're just bait for better fishes now. Now they are just bait, boxing bait for real fighters. And pretty soon we'll be talking about some real fighters.
Indeed, we will be. The entire purpose of the show in Times Square was to set up the possible rematch between Haney and Garcia. And given what we saw and what happened, should they try and move forward, or should they just take their losses and go?
At the end of the day, we had a long discussion, you and I did, about this earlier today. I wish we had taped it because we were brutally honest. We didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but when you're honest, sometimes people get hurt. But sometimes if honesty can prevent people from getting hurt, that we'll get to that later. But
Yeah.
my point is this, that these aren't great fighters. Tiafimo is not a great fighter. He was on his road to becoming one, but he's not one. And now he'll never be one. Devin Haney, I did a show with and an in-ring. Devin Haney looked to be on that course, and he's off of it. And Ryan and Raleigh never were going to be great. Okay. So that's just, you can take it what anybody out there can just argue with me if you like. If you want to argue again with these eyes, try it. But my point is, I don't even give a damn to see them anymore. I'd rather see, the kid that you said that was making his pro debut, or
Yeah.
there's so many other guys out there that really want it. And these guys of today that we're all talking about, you can do all the theatrics in the world. You can have the script for The Godfather. But if you don't have Al Pacino or a Brando or a De Niro, then you can have the greatest script in the world. But if you don't have the actors to get in there and make it happen, then it ain't going to happen. And there was all this scripting going on Times Square, and fighters coming out of their hotel rooms and getting into cabs, getting into fancy cars, Cadillacs, Batmobiles. But at the end of the day, they might as well have just put, character actors in there. Because what was supposed to happen is they go into this ring, and then they're the real deal, and none of them were the real deal, with the exception of Raleigh, in my opinion, and he exceeded. But also, one thing to the fighters, they all looked crap, like they all looked lousy, all of them. Tiafimo, yeah, he was the best, whatever, and Raleigh fought. But you know what? It wasn't fair to those fighters.
No.
It wasn't fair what they did. These guys train a certain way. Everything with boxing is about repetition, repetition, repetition. They had to come from a hotel room into a damn car and go into and get out of a car, a vehicle, and then go into the ring. These guys are getting ready to go in the ring, and they're supposed to be laying their lives on the line for boxing and the fans. And that walk to the ring, I only did it for a few years. I was scared to death when I was walking into the ring. I didn't have, the amateur background. I had none. But I know that, again, it was all a game. This was all theatrics. And how many years have I been saying? I might have been the one that coined it. You don't play boxing. And it had to affect those fighters, that nonsensical stuff that went on. I've been saying on this show, they tried it with Triller. Now they're trying it with whomever it is. And it's not fair to the fighters. The boxing fans don't need that. All they need is a squared circle and two guys that are going to go in there, that lay it on the line, that are evenly matched. That's all boxing needs. And what I need, I need a break.
Yeah.
And we'll be back.
I got two options. Option one, I can accept defeat. Option two, I can get up. I can get tougher. I can get faster. I can get stronger. And then I go get mine. I made my choice. Have you made yours?
Back in this corner of the podcast. Sometimes I think we should run what goes on during breaks on this program. All right, Lee, where do we go from here? Saudi Arabia sounds good.
We do go to Saudi Arabia.
Let's get in a private jet with the Turk and Michael Buffer and go to Saudi to see Canelo.
Yeah, and really this was a necessary fight. Canelo versus Skull. Boxing politics got in the way here. Canelo chose to fight Edgar Berlanga, one of his other mandatories, so he was stripped of the IBF title. William Skull won the IBF title that was vacant. He beat Shishkin. And now this fight was made, I think, with an eye on what's going to happen in September, the Crawford fight. In order to maximize the marketability of this September fight, Canelo had to be undisputed again, so that when Terence Crawford fights Canelo, he will be attempting to become the first man in the four-belt era to win 3 divisional undisputed championships. And Canelo had to be undisputed, so he had to go to Saudi Arabia, collect his $100 million, and fight William Skull. Unfortunately, there wasn't much of a fight there. Canelo stalked, cut off the ring. Skull danced and moved and moved and moved and moved, very much like Devin Haney style. I remember seeing a clip on Twitter with fast motion clips of Devin Haney and William Skull, and they ran it at 100 speed, and it was just
Yeah.
to illustrate just how much movement that they were doing. There wasn't much of a fight, and in fact, here's a couple of copybox stats that will tell you just how little action there was. Canelo in 12 rounds threw 152 total punches. That's less than 13 per round. And yet Canelo won pretty widely on the scorecards, which ought to tell you how badly Skull performed.
Skull rhymes with dull, but keep going.
Another illustration that tells you how bad these two cards were. CompuBox has had about 15,000 fights in its database over its 40-year history. These 3 fights, Haney Ramirez, Canelo Skull, and what was the other one? I forget. Oh yeah, Ryan Garcia and Raleigh. Canelo was the number 1 in terms of combined punches thrown by the two fighters over 12 rounds. We had the number 1, number 4, and number 6 in terms of fewest combined punches thrown.
I was thinking, I got my hair done yesterday at the Pocket Rockets house. Wayne McCulloch, his daughter Winona, does a great job on my hair each month. And I was telling Wayne, you would throw more punches in a damn fight, 12-round fight, than all of these cards combined almost. It was so pathetic. I'm exaggerating, embellishing a little bit, but you get the point, It was pathetic.
And you get the sense that Canelo, he knew that Terrence Crawford was in the audience. He was watching him. And it's kind of like a football team that doesn't want to show everything that they have to the opposition. So he did the bare minimum. I mean, he kept his
Well,
hands up.
that's your opinion.
That's my opinion.
You actually think he was doing less because Crawford was there?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Possible.
I mean,
Possible.
I like what you're saying. I hope you're right, but I just don't think Canelo can cut off the ring like he used to be able. And let's face it, that guy's a big, solid athlete. He's bigger than Crawford, and he's got great legs. You know,
Yes.
in fact, he possibly could have been in the Derby, in the Kentucky Derby that was run earlier that day. You know, I mean, he ran like a bandit, didn't he? And
Yeah.
I don't look, you can't cut a guy off. There were people texting me saying, "Oh, Canelo's completely lost it." He can't cut off the ring like he once did. But if a guy's not cooperating, Charlo did the same thing to was it Jermel, right? That did the same thing against him.
Yeah.
Ran like a bandit. And
Yeah.
all credit to Canelo because these guys are he almost has this Tyson-esque type thing. They're beaten before they get in the ring. But it was horrible. But it was good for Canelo, and let me tell you why. He got in the rounds. He got in the rounds while that guy watching, who's my guy, was watching and not fighting, and has
Yeah.
done a lot of watching and not fighting. So anyway, continue.
Yeah. I mean, and speaking of Crawford, they brought him into the ring after the fight was over, and it had a smattering of applause. Maybe it's because it was happening at 7 in the morning local time. They literally have been fighting all night. And, what do you think? One thing that struck me is that when they did the face to face, Crawford was slightly taller than he was.
Yeah,
It's not a,
none of that. That I tell you, you and I talk about it all the time, and you know you're the best in the business at writing out the scripts for the broadcasters, and your words are fantastic. And I don't think anybody does as good a job as you do. But a lot of the times, you know, when you get caught up in that height reach, it doesn't mean a damn thing unless you know how to use it.
correct.
But the bottom line on this is Canelo is a solidly at least two weight divisions solidly, maybe three bigger than Crawford.
Yes.
Crawford doesn't fight like Skull. Crawford will fight. He will fight you. What I saw, you know, in there, the only thing, and we're not going to spend any time on it, the only thing I'll say is Canelo still has the slow feet. They're even slower. He is going to have some tremendous advantages. He's going to be the favorite, I assume. But Crawford can win the fight, but to win the fight, it's going to not be a barn burner. And that's all I'm going to say. We've got so much time to talk about it.
We do.
Right now, my pick is Crawford, but you know what? I would have felt more comfortable with that pick a year ago than I feel right now. In my opinion, Canelo should be the favorite. But the main thing that what Canelo did getting in those 12 rounds is to me way better for him moving into September than had he knocked Skull out in one or two rounds. I don't think he carried Skull, but
No.
I think the fact that Canelo got in the round, just the rounds, is really good. But one thing, was a time when I was calling Canelo for many years the best combination puncher in boxing. He's not anymore.
No.
He's not. He can only really throw one or two punches at a time. Will that get it done against Crawford? We'll see. We're going to find out.
That's the big mystery. Can Crawford take Canelo's punch? And can Crawford hit Canelo hard enough to get his respect? Those are the two dynamics that are going to be at work. But in the wake of these two cards that were so disappointing, there was something that has been whispered, but now has turned into shouts, and that is, are the fighters being paid too much money? And Turki Al-Sheikh, on balance, has been a positive force for boxing. But something he said during an interview on the New York Cards pre-show really caught my ear. And he said that he went to all six fighters, six main event fighters, and assured them that even if they lost, he would still do business with them. And I know his heart was in the right place, but I think that had a lot to do with what happened there, and with the Canelo Skull fight as well. Um, Someone asked me on Twitter if there was something in modern boxing that is causing all these underwhelming fights to take place. And here was my answer, quote, the incentive for some has changed from victory and legacy to knowing the huge check has cleared. Also, when one is told that a loss won't result in being disqualified from future huge paydays, the deterrence factor for a bad performance has been removed. It's simply human nature. Most of us take the path of least resistance. And there is a point where one is paid so much money for one performance that there's really no need to fight more than once a year. And even worse, when the check clears, what's the incentive to do more than the bare minimum? It didn't help that all three matches involved counterpunchers, and Teofimo Barboza, in the case of Teofimo and Barboza and Canelo versus Skull, it was counterpuncher versus counterpuncher. The styles just didn't mesh. But
There's a
these were
difference,
fights that,
though. I agree with everything you said, but let me stop you before.
yeah,
So, style is one thing, but effort's another thing.
yes,
I didn't see the effort.
yeah,
I didn't see the effort. I think I've interviewed more world champions than anybody alive, over my years.
yeah,
Certainly one-on-ones. And I remember always the great fighters told me that they were best when they were hungry. They also told me when they would get upset, it usually was from when they weren't so hungry and their opponent was hungry.
yeah,
The hungry fighter is the dangerous fighter. The hungry animal and the wounded animal, of course, but the hungry animal is the dangerous animal. If a tiger's well fed, a lion's well fed, it might walk by a little baby carriage and just sniff and walk away. But when it's hungry, beware. It's hard for me, though. My other side of this is we got college football players being paid millions now. It's another
yeah.
whole subject for Smitty's sports talk and not in this corner. But and by the way, I'm against it. I'm against that. There's plenty of time to make a ton of money when they become a pro, but it's hard to be against fighters putting their lives on the line, getting paid well,
Right.
when you got college kids making millions in a team sport. But I think it's just the whole setup of boxing right now and the way these fighters get treated and the way they're coming up. I think one of the worst things in the world is what's worse than the money is social media and their thing of being relevant in social media. That's what they think counts. Hits on social media more than hits in the boxing ring. And I see it with their lack of improvement, and I see it in so many ways. But I'll let you continue. I've said enough on that subject. But the hungry fighter will always be the best and the most dangerous in boxing.
I agree. And after the Canelo card ended, I mean, I paid for the bundle on DAZN. I think it was like 89 something or whatever. And those two cards, if they weren't done by Turkey, probably would have been $70-$80 each. But we got it for a twofer, basically. We got a twofer. I still felt cheated. I still felt cheated because of everything that unfolded. And I looked on social media afterwards, and I wasn't alone in that feeling. There seemed to have been a malaise that
Oh
had
yeah, yeah.
descended
Never have I
upon.
seen this much negativity. By the way, the Ajagba Bacoli fight was decent.
Yeah,
And Jaime Munguia, I thought he looked good bouncing back. And he looked pretty good in his his rematch. He got a little bit of redemption. So, by the way, I
yeah.
thought Effie should have gotten that decision over Bacoli. Bacoli's too fat.
Agreed. Agreed. And there was a Mexican fighter who was making his professional debut, Marco Verde, I believe is his name. He looked very good in his uh, pro debut. Scored a knockout, looked good in the process, overmatched. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a pro debut, but he looks to be very promising. And Canelo has said that he thinks that Verde could be the next Mexican idol. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Well, when all looks so bad, Friday and Saturday, when all looks disgusting, then comes the monster down the street from my house that way here in Vegas.
Yes, indeed. And it was a night to remember, and it was something that boxing needed.
Well, aren't you going to go ahead? Let's
I
go.
thought we were going to do that for the next segment.
No, let's stay right into it now because we
Okay.
ran
Yeah.
overtime. That's fine. I want to bump the I want to end this with some positivity.
Well, okay, yeah. Everybody was in a sour mood. I remember going on social media and I said, look, the boxing world is on the shoulders of Inoue and Rafael Espinoza. And boy, did they ever deliver. They really did. Espinoza was up first, and he went up against Edward Vasquez, who was he lost a heartbreaking decision against in a title fight not too long ago, and it was a good fight. I mean, Espinoza, tallest featherweight champion in history.
Wow.
Uh,
I didn't know
he
that.
he's a stalker.
Yeah.
He's a stalker and he's a puncher and he's a volume puncher. And Vasquez tried his heart out. He was aggressive. He got some of his shots in, but eventually the wood chipper offense of Espinoza got to Vasquez. The fight was ended in the seventh round. And as far as the monster, my God, against Cardenas, Monster did monster things. He really did. But he had to get up off the canvas in round two before he did so. And my, oh my, those counter punches. I got to give credit to Tim Bradley. He has something called the boxing lab, and he isolated a flaw in Inoue's style that could be taken advantage of, and that is his opposite hand of the one he's throwing. He lowers it, and he has his chin open. Well, I don't know if Cardenas's team spotted it beforehand or if they were watching the ESPN broadcast, but that he took full advantage of that flaw and he
Yep.
floored the monster. And for several rounds afterwards, he was trying. I mean, those counter punches were whizzing by the chin. They looked very, very dangerous. But then the monster, he got up off the canvas and he shifted into another gear. And eventually it was too much. It was a great ending. In a way, did what he was expected to do. But in defeat, Cardenas lifted his stock exponentially. In fact, his manager and his promoter Samson Lukowitz, said that
My
in the wake
friend.
of the performance against Inoue, Cardenas has been offered to fight in Japan, go down to 118 pounds, and fight for one of the four bantamweight championships that all four Japanese fighters hold. He'll have his pick of who he wants to fight. So, as in terms of back and forth action, it was nice to hear a crowd cheer after a round is over. It was nice to see four fighters give it all. It was nice. It was so uplifting
Well, yeah,
that
let
the
me tell you
crowd
what was
stayed
good
after.
about it. Let me tell you what was good and great about it. The Monster's a first ballot Hall of Famer someday. And he fought like a hungry fighter.
He
He
did.
got off the canvas. He shook it right off and came right back. I mean, I know how to beat him. I know how to beat the Monster. And if you get me a little miniature Dwight Muhammad Kwawi at that weight, but that fighter doesn't exist on planet Earth now, as far as I know. I know what type of style can beat him. So does Tim Bradley. But it doesn't exist unless it's your guy, Nakatani, who's a different kind of a style and might
Yeah.
beat him. But no matter what, look, the dude gets hit with shots. I've seen him twice now hit by shots he didn't see and get knocked down. Lesser fighters would have gotten stopped by those shots and not been able to recover if they did get up. And he did. It's a flaw. Every fight. There's no perfect fighter. Sugar Ray Robinson had flaws, if you want to say that.
Sure.
But my point is, more than flaws, he has great attributes mentally, physically, I would probably say spiritually, that make him, the perfect monster for boxing. And what was a very, 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 very low weekend for the sport, the sun rose
Yeah.
here in Vegas, and with it was the monster, and we just need to enjoy him while we can, because I get the feeling that he's right there, and what we'll see soon is that. But boy, while we're seeing this and even that, we're looking at an all-time great, and a guy that, in my opinion, maybe he's the best fighter ever from Japan. I don't know. That would be more your hat.
I think you could make a very strong argument that Inoue is already the best fighter that Boxing Rich Japan has ever produced. And, he's already fought twice this year,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
which not
That's
a
all
lot
right.
of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Anything
and,
else
and
to say about before we come back for anything else to put and we
yeah.
do need to put a cap on it.
So the plan for Inoue is to fight mandatory challenger Muradjan Akhmadaliev in September, and if he wins that, he may fight WBC bantamweight champion Juto Nakatani in Tokyo, and then go up to featherweight and challenge either Nick Ball or Rafael Espinoza. Um, one, do you think the monster could run the table? And two, where do you now put him in the pound for pound rankings?
He's got to be right at the top of the pound for pound rankings. If number one, I wouldn't have an issue. Number two, number three, there's Crawford, who hasn't fought enough to. There's Usyk, who's right,
Yeah.
who probably is the
Well,
guy. Benavidez is up there. Canelo's not, to me, at the very top anymore. But and there are others that we can name. But honestly, if you say the monster, nobody's going to argue with you on that. Before we go to a break, I've been saying hungry a lot. Hungry, the hungry fighter, and whether you mean it literally or figuratively, if you're hungry, you want to eat. And if you want to eat, you got to have good teeth, don't you? Which
yes, you
leads me
do.
right in somehow, some way to Dr. Nam.
Fun.
There he is, Dr. Fon. He specializes in full mouth cosmetic, veneers, crowns, dental implants, extractions. He's an expert on sedation, and that's important when you got to get the stuff done that I've had done and that people that have had implants know about. He's really consistently helped his patients achieve their ideal smiles by offering a range of affordable financial options tailored to their needs. And that's something you're not going to get. We're so bound by insurance and everything, and most people don't even have dental insurance. So they're in trouble right from the get-go if they have a dentist that won't work out anything with them. And Dr. Fon really, does that. He has a number of locations. I'd just rather give you a number. Folks, really, if you need dental implants, let me give you the number. 702-637-9168. 702-637-9168. Dr. Nam Fon. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and what are we doing for the last segment here?
Well, you made reference to Manny Pacquiao, and apparently he's back in the news for a reason that neither you or I agree with. And we'll just leave it at that.
And we'll be back.
I got two options. Option one, I can accept defeat. Option two, I can get up. I can get tougher. I can get faster. I can get stronger. And then I go get mine. I made my choice. Have you made yours?
Back in this corner of the podcast, 158. We got somewhere in Ireland is the amazing mighty Quinn, Jack Quinn, running the ship. We've got Lee Groves over there. We got a lot going on, man. We have some great guest that we're going to have upcoming. What do we have in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks? What do we got?
Well, I
Got
mean,
Jeff Finnick, I know, is going to be on with us.
yeah, Jeff Fennick is one. We're working on getting Butterbean on
Yeah.
with us, and also who else?
Steve
Who else?
Albert. Steve Albert's got the new
Albert.
book
Yes,
out.
he's got a book out.
Yeah, funny thing happened on the way to the broadcast booth. He's going to be on with us. Speaking of Butterbean, he's going to be with us. My gosh, the Hall of Fame is just around the corner
It is.
in Canastota. They're already sending me my notes. I'm excited about it. Got a great parade grand marshal, beautiful, young, talented Sydney Sweeney
Yeah.
is going to be there. Got some great inductees, and the best of them is the guy we're going to focus on right now. When I say the best of them, the guy that really everybody's going to be there to see, especially maybe half the Philippines, is the Pac-Man, the great Manny Pacquiao. Won titles in 8 different weight divisions, a career that spanned almost 30 damn years, and should, but for all intents and purposes, the final thing should be next month in Canastota. But unfortunately, it might not be the final time we see Manny in a ring. So I'll flip it to you to get us into our last segment here.
Yeah, a few days ago, word came out that WBC President Mauricio Suleiman reportedly approved a fight between WBC welterweight champion Mario Barrios and the 46-year-old freshly minted Hall of Famer Manny Pacquiao in July. In an interview with Boxing King Media last week, he confirmed that the current plan, and there's a caveat there, the current plan is for Barrios to defend against Pacquiao July 19th, probably at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. And there is one caveat. Pacquiao is currently waiting for his Senate campaign to finish up on May 12th. And once that is done, then the news could be made official. And Suleiman said that Pacquiao has already been cleared by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. He said that the fight can be made because there's a WBC rule that allows a fighter, quote, of Pacquiao's standing, end quote, to come out of retirement and directly challenge for a championship. And unless something happens between now and then, it looks like Manny Pacquiao is going to go straight from the stage in Canastota to T-Mobile Arena and fight for a world championship.
Well, not if I can help it. I'm certainly going to get in his ear and tell him what I think. And nobody has been, as a broadcast journalist, commentator, television host of the longest running interview show in television in this corner. I love the guy. I love Manny Pacquiao for what he's done, and I was right there with him in the embryonic stages, and he far exceeded even what I thought he could do, and I thought he could do a lot. But if boxing, there's no other sport that shoots themselves in the foot, in the ankle, in the shin, and sometimes in the head and heart than boxing. I mean, this is not going into the ring in an exhibition. And by the way, he did an exhibition recently, and that didn't go so well, did it?
It didn't. It was last July in Japan. He fought an exhibition with a Japanese kickboxer named Rukia Anpo, who is probably about the same height or similar height as Mario Barrios. Barrios is 6 feet tall. And this kickboxer landed cleanly and often against Pacquiao. And about this time last year, there were rumors that Barrios and Pacquiao would fight in September. And Pacquiao looked so bad in that exhibition that those plans were scuttled. And it looks like the talk is coming up again.
Well, again, what possible good can come out after, it's not like in the old days, we need to give the champion another payday because he's broke. Manny Pacquiao's not broke, okay? What and if they want to give him his moment in the sun, they're present him with the biggest, richest, most sparkling WBC belt that's ever been made and put it around him. I got an idea. Do it center ring at Allegiant Stadium right before Terrence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez fight. You know, make the fight be for the Manny Pacquiao Emeritus
Legends Emeritus
Filipino-esque,
belt.
you know, what belt? I mean, I'm being sarcastic, of course, but do not put this 46-year-old legend in harm's way. You know, we spoke about earlier everything about the hungry fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Manny Pacquiao's one of his greatest attributes is he was and still is that hungry fighter. He can't get it out of him. At 75 years old, he'll make a comeback against a fighter because Manny's a fighter. That's what he knows. You could see it. He exuded it when he would come into the ring, you know, was smiling and happy. And, you know, he's a fighter through and through and through, but he's through. He's done. He's finished. It's over. He far exceeded anything that could have even been dreamed of, even by him in this clip that you'll see right here. You're a world figure now with your success in the ring. How are you going to handle that? What are you going to do to deal with that?
I just want to help the poor people in my country, like especially in Mindanao.
You're still a baby in the sport of boxing. Is it important for you to go down as one of the greats, to be along with the Salvador Sanchez's and people like that?
Yeah, I like that. I want to. My name is in the top. Even I'm stopping boxing. I wanna be a model to the boxers, to the other boxer.
All right. Well, later on, you're going to show me a thing or two, okay? But you can't hit me. Well, I tell you what, you're off to a fantastic start, and you provided us a lot of thrills already. I'm certain the future's going to be tremendous for the Pac-Man, Manny Pacquiao. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You know, Lee, when you see him there and you hear what he said and you've seen what he's done, not everything's been perfect with Manny Pacquiao. There's been allegations that we don't even need to get into. Everybody knows what they are. But he has far exceeded anything that we thought possible. Even when he beat Keith Thurman, I didn't think he was going to beat Keith Thurman. I didn't. And that was what, 2019, I think.
6 years ago, almost to the day.
Yeah.
And
even that fight, at the end of it, the tail end of it, Thurman was starting to whack him around. And we were all hoping that Manny would just get through it. And because of the knockdown earlier in the fight, he could get the decision, and he did. But there is absolutely nothing positive for Manny Pacquiao, for boxing, the sport, for boxing fans, especially him, his legion of Filipino fans that aren't just all Filipino. I would make a comment that you could say Manny Pacquiao carried boxing for almost a decade. He was the guy, more so than Floyd, who had a lot of inactivity for different reasons. And I know Floyd beat him, but that's another story altogether. Right. The point that, the point is, what possible good could come out of Manny Pacquiao fighting Barrios? What, somebody going to say, oh, Smitty, he might win. Okay, well, he wins. But what about the punches to that head? Look at Manny Pacquiao's face right here in this picture. This is how Manny Pacquiao looks now. Look at that face. Does that look like a guy who belongs inside the ring against a 20? I think Barrios is still in his 20s, I think.
29.
Okay. You know, we've spoken a lot on this program earlier about everything that happened in Times Square and then Saudi Arabia, and then we ended it with the Inoue fight that was here in Las Vegas on Sunday. And when you think about this Manny Pacquiao thing, I just can't think, Lee, of a scenario that would be good for Manny Pacquiao, for boxing fans. And by the way, they're not just Filipino fans. You can make a strong argument that Manny Pacquiao, even more than Floyd Mayweather, carried the sport for almost a decade. I've said that before. You know, he did so much. And if we want to honor him, we're doing it. We're doing it in Canastota. I'm hosting it in a month. And then you end it. And then you end it, and forever. Manny Pacquiao would do what all the great champions used to do. And I wish they'd go back to more of this, having them come in the ring for the big fights, before the big fights, and introducing them, gets the crowd excited. By the way, that's a much better experience than a damn Batmobile bringing some fighter in. But please, whomever, whether it be my friend Mauricio, the WBC, who care about fighters. They have a thing called WBC Cares. I've actually gone to those around the world. And anybody else in boxing, you cannot take chances with these guys, no matter how great they were. It's where they are. I think we recently saw this great former heavyweight champion. I think he was the youngest heavyweight champion ever. Mm-hmm. And I think they, dug him up and put him against a YouTuber who got a decision over him. So, I mean, if we didn't learn from that, and this is even more dangerous.
Yeah.
Because Jake Paul isn't Barrios, and Manny's a guy that has absorbed a lot of punches. Let's not forget what happened here in Las Vegas against Marquez. Do you remember that?
I do remember.
Yeah. And think of that shot. And what year was that? A decade or more ago. So please, this is something that we can take care of. Manny Pacquiao is fine financially, and if he's not, that's on him, and he can be fine again. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the acclaim, the accolades, or the plaudits. He needs his health for the rest of his life. So let's hope that my pal Manny Pacquiao is there with us in Canastota, and the closest thing he gets to a boxing ring again, maybe again, I like that idea. Let's bring him in for the, Canelo. Maybe he can be the one that gives the belt to Canelo or Crawford, whoever wins that fight. And you have a final word to you on it.
I agree with you. Manny Pacquiao has nothing to prove. He is the greatest fighter ever to come out of Asia. You can make an argument that he is one of the greatest pound for pound fighters who ever lived, top 30 or so. His accomplishments, the depth and breadth of what he's done in the ring, it's legendary.
Yeah.
There's no need for him to add to it. The record speaks for itself. The man speaks for himself. And I hope that he will be able to speak for himself for decades afterward.
Yeah. Well said. And on that note, so long, everybody.